Welcome to another Bimbeats video. In this one, we're going to be showing you how to build this simple dashboard that compares active time versus running time for any particular application. In this case, we're looking at Bluebeam. Simply put, the color of the cells is based on how much time is actively being spent on an application and how much time the application is running in the user's computer. This way, you can see how much time a user is actively spending and engaging with an application versus how much time they have it running idle in the background. With this information, you can free up license seats or get a better picture of how programs are being used in your organization. Setting this up is a quick process, and once you know how it works, you can apply it to pretty much any program or executable. Before we get into building it, I'll walk you through the different data views that we'll be using, just so everything makes sense when we start putting it together. Let's take a look at the two visualizations in simple terms. The first one is looking at the active views, and it's measured using a tool called Active Window, which is included in the data view log or beat log. The second is how long the process is running in your computer, and this is collected as part of the metric beat, which is in the data view called metric beat. A brief introduction of Active Window is in order. Active Window is a tool that ships with Bimbeats and collects information on the forefront window that is active on your computer. So on Windows, you can have multiple windows open, but the window that you are actively clicking on is considered the active window. This is the window that a user is engaging with. The Active Window tool collects information related to the process, product, software version, the title of the window, and a lot of other fields related to that active window. Now that I've said window about 20 times, let's look at what these logs for active window might look like. So for example, if you're in Revit, it's going to log that the process name is Revit, the product is Autodesk Revit. It also collects the software version, the title of the window, the username, computer name. Similarly for Rhino, Photoshop, Bluebeam, Enscape, or SketchUp. Whatever window is active or forefront in the user's computer is going to collect information related to that process every minute. The second table that shows how long a process has been running in a computer is collected with metric beat. Metric beat runs every 10 minutes by default, and it collects information related to the processes that are running on that computer. That includes the name of the process, the percentage of CPU and memory that the process is being used, along with the username and the host name of that process. So if we're in Revit, this is an example of what that information might look like. It's collecting that the process name is revit.exe, along with values related to the CPU percentage and memory percentage of that process. We can get similar information from Rhino, Photoshop, Bluebeam, Enscape, or any process or executable that's running in your computer. Now, what does that look like when we put it together? Simply put, we're mapping how many hours individual users are mapping per day, with a program being active, as in most actively engaged with, or with a program running in the background. Putting this in terms more similar to how we will see it when we're building the visualization in Kibana, for each username over timestamp measured in 1-day intervals, we're looking at how many hours that active window of that process was running. In this case, for active window, we're dividing by 60 because active window runs once every minute. And we're doing the same for metric beat, where for every username over a 1-day timestamp, we're looking at how many times the process matches that of the program we're tracking. In this case, it's divided by 6 because metric beat by default runs every 10 minutes. Let's jump into Kibana and see what this looks like. Within Kibana, I've created a new dashboard, and I can simply click on Create Visualization. Let's start with log. So this will be called log or beat log, depending on when you did your deployment. And let's set the information for the last 7 days. We're going to set the visualization to a heat map. And for horizontal axis, we're going to drag the timestamp. For the vertical axis, we're going to use usernames. Because I'm working with anonymous data, I'm going to be using a blurred username field, but in your case, it would be user.name. And I want to set this to, let's call it 15 values. And I'm not going to group remaining values as other. And for the cell value, we're going to simply select unique count of timestamp. We'll close this. There's a few more things we need to tweak for this to work. Firstly, let's start with the horizontal axis. Our timestamp by default is set to a minimal interval of auto. We want to set this to a minimal interval of 1 day. Further, we need to use a formula to convert the values of timestamp into an hour, because as mentioned earlier, active window runs once every minute. We can actually divide the count by 60 to reflect how many minutes there are in an hour, And now we're getting a value of hours per day spent on a program. Finally, we can color code these. So let's select some custom color mapping. We'll set this to a number. We only want 4 colors, so we'll delete one of them. And we can start assigning our colors to match our preferred view. So in this case, if anything is above 0.01, it'll be that light color. Anything above 2 will be that color. Anything above 4, anything above 4 will be this darker blue. And finally, anything above 8 hours in one day is going to be flagged as red. Back. We will close, save and return. Now, this isn't really showing us anything related to a particular program yet because we haven't filtered for a single program. What we can do in this case, for the example of review, is set process is equal to review. If I update, we'll see the table to reflect that value. Let's extend the time range to 15 days, just so we can see 2 weeks worth of data. Now I'm going to show you an easy way to duplicate this table. We could rebuild it from scratch to use the metric beat log, or you can simply duplicate the table, and then we'll go into edit in lens, and within here we will set our index to metric beat. Now within metric beat, we're still using the blurred username field. In your case, it would be user.name, but we do need to change the cell value because the formula is reflecting for active window, which runs once every minute. Because metric beat runs once every 10 minutes, we just need to divide by 6. We close and we save and return, and the new table is updated. Now, why are we seeing an error here? That's because on beat log or the log data view, the value for the process is called process, whereas in metric beat, that value is called process.name. So all we need to do is type in or process.name equals to review.exe. And there you have it. Now we're seeing across the last 2 weeks how much time people spent on Bluebeam actively engaging with the application versus how much time the app was running in the background. Here we have an instance of a user leaving Bluebeam running over the weekend. Now I mentioned earlier that this works for any progress or program, and we can simply edit this entire dashboard by changing this filter. So for example, if I want to check Revit usage, I would simply change the process name to Revit and the process.name to Revit.exe. I can update, and now I'm seeing the active versus running time for Revit. And there you have it. I hope you found this video helpful. If you have any questions or ideas you'd like to share as you build your own, please talk with us in our forum. Have a good one.